Hi everybody, this is Laura, City Scrapper. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel. Today I have a layout that I made using the My Creative Scrapbook limited edition kit for January. For this layout, I'm using a number of strips of paper that are either branding strips or they were left over from some other projects that I made this month. And I love using strips. I think it's a great way to use up any scraps that you have, and I love the look on the scrapbook page. So I used two different colors of Distress Oxide. I used Hickory Smoke and Chipped Sapphire, and I inked the edges of the strips of paper, and then I also used the Distress Oxide to ink the edges of some of the embellishments I'm going to use on the page. For the beige colored or tan colored embellishments, I used some Distress ink in Vintage Photo. I'm being really careful about inking the edges of these laser cuts. The laser cuts are absolutely beautiful and they're very delicate, so I don't want to be too rough with them. I grabbed a scrap of white cardstock. I arranged all of the strips on top of the cardstock, and I'll be attaching those directly down to the cardstock rather than to the pattern paper. This way I can move that whole unit around. I'm just trying to decide which patterns I want next to each other. And I try to vary solid with a pattern and have the different colors spread throughout. And in the end, just arrange them in a way that I think looks nice. Once I had decided where I wanted each of the strips, I put some ATG adhesive on the piece of cardstock, and then I began to attach all those strips down to it. It takes a little bit of time to ink the edges of all the strips of paper, but I think it's really worth it. I think one of the reasons why I like it so much is that it brings all of these different strips together, and even though they're from the same collection, it just helps the whole unit to look more cohesive. Sometimes the strips can start going a little askew if one of them is a little thicker on one end than the other. So I try to be careful to make sure that I'm making all the strips go straight up and down. And I will sometimes use a T-square, and sometimes I'll draw some pencil lines to help me with that. This one seemed to come together very easily. So I trimmed the cardstock down, and now I'm placing it on the pattern paper that I'm going to use for this layout, and I was happy with it, so I put some adhesive on it and I attached that strip down right down the center. I wanted to create a mat for my photo, and I am using some Distress Oxide in Chipped Sapphire and a piece of cardstock, and I'm inking just the edges because that's all that's going to show on the layout, and I'm creating a blue mat for the photo. I love this color blue, and I think that this will really help the photo to stand out. To keep my working pad clean, I use a piece of blue paper. I got that from one of my Silhouette Cameo cutting mats. Of course, I use them on the mats when the mats are still good, but then once the mats are no longer usable and I have to throw the mats out, I'll save that film that goes over the top, and I find it's perfect for doing things like using mixed media on or using inks on, because it cleans up really well and it can protect the surface that you're working on. So now I have my photo mounted first on some white cardstock, and then I mount it on that piece of blue cardstock that I made a few moments ago. Then I put some fun foam behind that, and now I'm adding some adhesive and attaching that down right in the center of the layout. And I will go back later with some wet glue and attach that down as soon as I'm sure that that's exactly where I want my photo. Now I'm using the die cuts and the laser cuts that we got in the kit, and I'm arranging them all around my photo. I was trying to have the leaves look a little bit more organic, not quite so manipulated. So I was thinking that I would have some clusters, but I would also have some leaves kind of flowing around the photo area. Now I'm adding some of the gorgeous dimensional flowers that were in this month's kit. These flowers are tan with a brown center, and they also have touches of gold and silver. I love them because they have gold and silver, and yet they still have kind of a rustic feeling to them. Thought they were perfect for this particular layout. So I have a cluster on the right and a cluster on the left. I have a larger flower and then a couple of smaller flowers as well in both of those clusters. And then I was thinking that I liked the blue flowers and I thought that they went well with the layout. I decided that I was just going to use the smallest of the blue flowers to add accents to the larger flowers. Once I had the larger flowers and branches placed, then I started arranging some smaller leaves and some other little bits to the layout. And now I'm happy with where everything is, and I'm using some ATG adhesive and I'm attaching down the laser cuts. For the flowers, I'm using some heavy gel medium, and I like to use the gel medium because I don't think that other types of adhesive hold the dimensional flowers down as well. And for the leaves, I'm using the ATG adhesive because I find that I can go back and reposition things, and I will sometimes think that I'm being brave and use gel medium for the die cuts, but I very often regret it because I like to make little adjustments later on when the whole layout comes together. And if you've been with me a while, you might know that I really like to take a little bit of time away from looking at a layout before I attach things down permanently. Even just stepping away for an hour, and even better, coming back the next day, it really helps me to be able to spot problem areas and things that I would like to change. Over the top of the photo, I put a piece that I cut from one of the frames in the kit that I was planning on using on a different layout and didn't end up liking it, but I think it works really well on the top of the photo in this layout. So I included that. And then I also have a key on the lower right hand side of the photo, and I thought that would look kind of cute, kind of hanging there underneath the photo. Then there was a heart that I wanted to include on top of the photo, so I inked the edges with some of the vintage photo, and then I popped it up on some foam so that it would sit correctly on top of the photo. At first I had a little bit too much foam on the point of the heart, but then I realized I had to cut that back a little bit, so I trimmed the foam just a little bit, and then I placed it on top of the photo. I love adding butterflies to layouts, and there were so many beautiful butterflies in this month's kit, so I picked out a couple of different butterflies, and I have one in the upper left-hand corner. I have two in the lower right-hand corner. By the end, I relocate those butterflies because I just didn't like the way they were taking up that space there. Even though it's kind of like white space, I just felt like needed to have an area on the layout where there wasn't too much going on so that it didn't look overly busy. So I put the butterflies there for now, but a little bit later on I relocate them to other areas on the layout. And I popped up all of the butterflies on a little bit of foam just to give them a little bit of extra dimension. The butterfly that I am working with now, that is a side view of a butterfly, so I thought it would look nice to place it near a flower. There was a pack of laser cut pieces in this kit, and if you're interested in seeing everything that was included in this month's limited edition kit, you can take a look at the unboxing video. If that interests you, I'll put the link in the description box if you'd like to view it. But they had some images of buttons with string tied in the center, and I really like those, and those buttons went really well with the detailing that is on top of the photo. So I included two of those buttons, one near each of the areas where I have the flowers. This month we got rub-ons in the kit, and I was really psyched to use these. I haven't used rub-ons in a while, and these are absolutely beautiful. This was the first time I tried using them. I chose the word best. I cut it out along with the piece of paper that backs it, and now I'm going to rub it onto one of the journaling cards or layering pieces that we got in the kit. I trimmed the top that looked like a spiral notebook off because I knew that I could use that piece on another layout. I used the little tool that we got in with the rub-ons, and I rubbed the word onto the journaling piece, and now I'm going to fussy cut it out. I'm using my Martha Stewart scissors. I just love these scissors for fussy cutting. I think they work really well, and I fussy cut it out, and then I'm going to place it underneath the photo. And I really enjoyed using these rub-ons. This is just one of them. I ended up using a lot of the rub-ons on some of the other layouts, and I think they are really fun to use, and I love the way you could either rub them right onto the page or you could put them on a separate piece of paper and move them around. I'm really glad they were in the kit this month. I wanted to add some pearls to the layout, something I love to add. I didn't add a ton to this layout, just some pearls to the photo corners. And then I also added some to the key. And I'm going to be adding some very thin strips of pearls. These are 3mm adhesive strips of pearls, and I put these down the centers of each of the butterflies that are on the layout. I love to add these little strips of pearls. I think that they accomplish two different things on a lot of my layouts. They help to add another texture to the layout, and then they also add something that is on a very small scale. I always think that it looks nice to have things that are on different scales, some larger items, some smaller items, and these are very tiny, and there's not really that much else on the layout that is very tiny and delicate. So I always add these to the centers of butterflies. I just think that it adds a great little accent to the pages. There were a number of stamps that were included in the kit. One says forever, one says always, and I thought that these would be nice additions to the flower clusters, something a little bit different. So I inked the edges using the Vintage Photo Distress ink, and I tucked those in by the larger flowers. I used a little bit of gel glue to hold down that small blue flower. Usually I use the gel medium, but since that's a smaller flower, I thought the gel glue would hold it in place. Now I'm placing the title Best underneath the photo. First, I'm popping it up on some foam. And because I'm putting the title right next to that flower cluster, I cut back one of the leaves that was there. I just felt that it was a little bit too much in that spot with the title. And I'll use that on another place, either on this layout or on another layout. And then to add a little bit more to the title, I found a sentiment that said a moment in time, and I cut out the word and now it says best moment in time. Now I wanted to add another little detail to the layout, and I like the idea of bringing a little bit of white back into these large clusters. So I used some die cuts. I have these die cuts that are of branches. I always wonder whether they're berries or buds. I'm not really sure, but in either case, I really like the way these look tucked into flower clusters. There are two different dies. One is a little shorter and one is a little bit longer, but the combination of them, I feel, is a nice addition to the entire layout. And like I said, it brings in some white and it brings in some more detail. I placed a pearl embellishment in the center of the heart, and that was the last touch, and this layout is complete. Here are some close-ups of the layout. Thank you so much for watching, everybody, and thank you for all of the support and the lovely comments you've left me. I really appreciate it. Please take a look in the description box where you'll find the link to the My Creative Scrapbook website where you could order a subscription to this beautiful kit or one of the other kits that My Creative Scrapbook has each month. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.